in my view, a norm is a rule of behavior that, first of all, the people, the target population involved, basically recognizes that this rule applies to a specific set of situations. It can be, of course, very large or very small, it depends. And second, they have expectations about other people in their reference network obeying this rule and expecting them, the target people in this case, to obey the rule. And this expectation, the first is what I call empirical. I expect that most people in my reference network follow this rule, behave in such and such way. And the second is what I call normative expectation. I expect that most people in my reference network believe I should or obey this rule, expect me, in a very strong normative sense to obey this rule. Now, if people have such preference, and if their following the rule is conditional on these on these expectations, then you have a social norm. So social norm, there are three elements. Empirical expectation, I expect most people in my reference network to follow this rule. Normative, I expect that they believe I should follow the rule, and I have a conditional preference for following given these expectations. Why conditional preference? It's very important because we often have lots of expectations, beliefs about what other people do or do not do, approve, disapprove, but these expectations, these beliefs have no influence whatsoever on our behavior. I give you an example. When it rains, if you ask me, yes, I expect people to use umbrella or anyway use something to cover themselves, protect from the rain. But this expectation has no causal effect on my going out with an umbrella. Okay. In other cases, instead, if I expect people, let's say in my village, to marry their daughters as soon as they reach puberty, this expectation usually has an influence, a causal influence on my own decision to marry or not to marry my daughter. So expectations, in my case, play a causal role on my decision to obey the rule, to follow certain behavior. Think of violence against children, and there are many types of violence. There is the most terrible sexual violence, but there is also in many cultures physical or verbal abuse, or what we consider verbal and physical abuse. And it's very interesting to realize that in some of this culture, this is not at all considered abuse. And there are certain norms of, let's say, good parenting, being a good father or a good mother that require, punishing the child if the child does something, that is prohibited or is disrespectful or doesn't study or doesn't do certain things or does other things and so on and so forth. So in many cultures, what we realize is that there are norms supporting, certain forms of abuse of children, so that a good parent is expected to redress, the rebellious child, and to do that, with physical violence, basically. So there are norms that support certain violent behavior. And so the crucial point is, how do we change them? Same thing with violence against women. Very often, this violence is also supported by women themselves. They think that is right, that the husband beat them if they don't fulfill their duties. So in many cultures, there is an idea of what a good woman is or a good child is, and if children, in our case, in your question, do not conform to that type of behavior, they will be punished. And usually parents feel it is their duty to punish such, misbehaving child. And this is a cause of a lot of violence.